let's go through a sample question. This sample question is actually very simple. It provides you with an int array and asks you to write a method to find its highest value, and then another method to find its lowest level value, and another method to get the total. The, the purpose of this exercise rather is I'm going to break it down subscript by subscript, each step in the loop, so that you can see how array should be processed. So let's start by creating a class. What should be the naming convention? Simple question. Sample question array processing. And Java doc. And public static void main string array args. Now let's get this into main. And now let's write a public static int get highest value. And let me just put the return 0 for now. And get lowest value. And get total value. And in order to get highest value, apparently you need to pass in numbers. And then we will do a system.out.print line highest value is get highest value numbers. Okay, let's start by running this highest value. So what do we need to do in order to process this? Apparently, we need to set up a recording variable as the highest value to be. Right now, it's still not the highest value, but it will be the highest value to be. It will be later on. So we'll call it int high equals to. I will just initialize this first. And I got the error because high has not been assigned. But anyway, we will assign an initial value to the recording variable. Once the recording value has an initialized initial value, we'll go through array to process the recording variable. Now I'm writing this in the general term. What does that process the recording variable mean? It means in this particular method, process means put the highest value in array into the recording variable, right? And to be even more accurate, it means if any element in the array is greater than recording variable, recording variable will take the new value. You're trying to get the highest value, right? So you go through this array. Whenever you see a value higher than your current value, you take the value. So it will be a for loop. One. And here we will assign high as the numbers, the first value. You cannot assign this as 0 because what if the numbers are all negative? Then you are accidentally introducing a number. You are accidentally introducing a value that is outside of array. So you want to check the highest value or total value or lowest value. You need to use the value inside the array to initialize yourself. So here, I less than numbers, dot length, and apparently I++. And this is if numbers I greater than high, then high should equals to numbers I. And it will return high. So this is very simple. What I want to show is how this is executed. So we are going to do a system out.print. I'm going to print out which step plus I I'm going to print out current element value plus, which is number I. Then I'm going to type current highest value. Or I should call it previous, because before the comparison, right? This is previous high value, so it's high. High is the previous high value, and the current element. And then if the exchange ever happens, I will print out new highest value discovered. Then I'm going to print out the new highest value. So as you can see, I have more printouts than the actual code. I'm trying to run this now. Let's start from the very beginning, the first step. So the first step, the first value high is 345, and the current value is 362, step 1, right? Then new highest value discovered. Then we get the new highest value 332. Similarly, in step 2, where the current value is 675 and is higher than 632, we set the new highest value. Then in step 3, the highest value previous was 675 and the current value is 157. So there's nothing exchanged. Instead, we'll go to the next step, get 843, and similarly, this one is actually lower than the previous value. This one is lower than the previous value. And finally, we get the highest value is right? So you can see this is how it works. You will set up a recording variable. You will assign an initial value. If it depends on how what you want to achieve here. Most likely, you will use something inside the recording variable, inside the array to initialize it. Or if it's a total issue, then you will assign it to 0. If it's a multiplication issue, you will assign it to 1. Whatever based on your requirement. Then you will go through the array, doing some operations between the current value, current element, and the recording value, and do your processing. This is the common pattern that we will use. Now let me copy this over to total value, to low value. I think it should be easy. We should call it low now. And this one is previous lowest. And this is low. And apparently we need to change this to if the number less than low, then we will exchange, right? Lowest value is less than. And we just change this to lowest and lowest and the low. And then we also can do this for the got total value. Oops. If you're trying to get a total value, then here in the process means put the new value, oops, add the new value in array into the recording variable. So there's no if. You just directly add it. So let's call it total as the total value. Going to change the name. And as we said, it should be plus. You just add it. And here you can use 0. There's nothing wrong about it. You can use 0. Then you will start counting at I equals to 0. Or you can set this as numbers 0. Either way, that's fine. And we do not need this if. And finally, we will do return total. Right, makes sense? So let me call total value. And run it. And now you can see the previous one. I think I still haven't changed this. Previous total value. Now let's rerun. The previous total value, current element, and I shouldn't use this new total value. So let me remove this and rerun. So the previous one is step 1, 345 plus get 977, and plus this become this. And you can actually calculate it manually, but basically this is how you do it. We talked about running total before, but at that time, pretty much everything input we cannot save, right? So we are going through, in our previous running total example, we are going through a loop. We are also going through a loop. We also have this total initialization and keep on adding data, but we were not able to record the previous one. Instead, we have to rely on some number or some user input or file in order to process the file, process the data. Now that we have this tool, we can do many more things. We can use this to get total, get high, get low, get highest, get lowest, instead of typing in the data one at a time. And this is the power of array. You can store a number series into the array and do multiple processing instead of reading through it again and again. User input, This is tedious and painful, right? Even reading file is a very costly operation. But what you can do is you can, if you have files, data in file, you can read those files into an array and process the array whichever way you want. The array is stored in the memory and it will be much faster than file processing. And this is the power of array.